They say some legends are born from whispers, and others are carved into reality with blood. Tonight, I'll tell you the story of a cursed drum, a grotesque relic said to be made of human skin, and the terrifying connection it has with a place known only as Sete Além. Our story begins with a man whose name is now lost to time. He had just bought an old, abandoned house in a quiet, forgotten neighborhood. The house stood like a shadow against the skyline, its paint peeled, windows cracked, and the yard swallowed by weeds. Yet, something about it drew him in, as if the house had been waiting for him all along. When he first stepped inside, the air was thick, heavy, and cold, as though the house itself was exhaling. Dust coated every surface, and the faint smell of mold mixed with something metallic. He ignored the unsettling atmosphere, convincing himself it was just an old house in need of repair. But deep in the basement, tucked away in a corner, he found something strange. A drum. At first glance, it seemed handmade, old, and weathered, but as he leaned closer, his stomach turned. The surface wasn't leather or animal hide. The texture was too human. The skin was stretched taut over the frame, marked with faded scars and strange carvings, symbols that seemed to twist when he looked at them for too long. Disturbed, yet strangely fascinated, he brought the drum upstairs. Days passed, and each time he looked at it, he swore the markings were shifting, forming shapes like faces screaming in silence. At night, when the wind was still, he could hear faint drumming coming from nowhere, or perhaps from deep within the drum itself. He tried to ignore it, but soon he began having vivid nightmares, visions of dark alleys and train stations shrouded in mist, filled with people who didn't seem entirely human. Whispers in his dreams spoke of a place beyond reality, a city called Sete Além, a place you could stumble into but never truly escape. One stormy night, there was a knock at his door. Standing there was an old man with a gaunt face, eyes sunken, but burning with an unsettling intensity. Beside him stood a young boy, pale and silent, staring at the man's hands. The old man's voice cracked as he spoke. "I believe you have something that belongs to us." The man froze, knowing exactly what the stranger meant. The old man stepped forward, uninvited, and his eyes fell upon the drum resting on the table. His hands trembled as he reached for it. "You shouldn't have touched this," he whispered, his voice carrying a weight of sorrow and rage. "This drum, it's a key." Confused and frightened, the man demanded to know what he meant. The old man's expression darkened. This drum was forged in pain, in a place between life and death. Sete Além. Have you heard of it? The man shook his head, but the name echoed through his mind like a memory he had never lived. The old man sighed, stroking the drum's surface as if it were alive. This was made from someone who was taken there, someone who never came back. His voice trembled, and for a brief moment, grief washed over his face. "It's more than an instrument. It's a beacon. Play it, and they will come." Lightning flashed through the window, and for an instant the man thought he saw shadows flickering behind the old man, tall, distorted shapes, like figures standing just outside reality's curtain. The boy tugged at the man's sleeve, whispering something too faint to hear. The old man turned sharply, his expression now one of desperation. "We have to go. If they've marked you, they'll come tonight." He grabbed the drum and clutched it tightly to his chest. Without another word, the man and boy disappeared into the storm. The homeowner stood frozen, heart pounding, unsure of what had just happened. But as the night dragged on, the whispers returned, louder than ever. Faint drumming echoed through the empty halls of the house, even though the cursed object was gone. He tried to convince himself it was just his imagination. But days later, he began receiving strange phone calls. Sometimes no one would speak on the other end. Other times he could hear faint music, like distant drumming, and a chorus of whispers in a language he didn't understand. One night, while staring out his window, he noticed something terrifying. Across the street stood a figure, a woman with impossibly long arms, her head tilted unnaturally to one side. She stood motionless, watching. When he blinked, she was gone. From that night on, his life became a waking nightmare. Shadows seemed to move on their own. Mirrors flickered with glimpses of places he didn't recognize, and the name Sete Além echoed through his dreams like a sinister calling. He began to suspect the drum was only part of the curse, and that by touching it, he had been marked. No one knows exactly what became of him. Some say he vanished one night without a trace. Others claim he was seen boarding a strange, silent train that no one else noticed, heading toward a city that shouldn't exist. A city where time stands still, and the souls of the lost wander forever. And as for the drum, it has changed hands many times over the years. It always disappears, only to resurface somewhere else, waiting for another curious soul to touch it. And when they do, Sete Além calls again. So if you ever find yourself in an antique shop, a dusty attic, or a forgotten basement, and you see a drum with markings you can't read, walk away. Because legends say that once you hear its sound, you're already too late.